and read this important announcement. Once again, the following Zoom session is being recorded and will appear later today. My voice is great today on my YouTube channel, Math with Mayo. Therefore, when you participate in the Zoom meeting, if you do not wish for your picture or your name to be made public, please leave the video off and use an alias name. If you have questions during the meeting but do not wish to speak, email me at bmail@ybcc.edu and I'll respond as soon as I can. All right, so today we're going to start the first of 2 days on section 4.4. And we've looked at 3 different ways of solving systems of linear equations. We looked at solving them using graphing, then using the substitution method, and finally the elimination or addition method. What we're going to be doing today and again on Monday is reading a story. From that story, come up with 2 equations with 2 unknowns. And then in some cases, they'll ask us to go on and solve the system and answer the questions. In other cases, they'll just want us to set up the 2 equations. So before we get started, do you have anything you want to look at, Karina?
No, I don't.
All right, then we shall proceed. So this is section 4.4, part 1. All righty. So I'm going to read a story and then come back and we're going to come up with 2 equations with 2 unknowns. It says 2 angles are complementary. Let's talk about complementary angles for a minute. What does that mean? If 2 angles are complementary, that means that they add up to 90 degrees. So we could say 2, or let's say this. The measure of 2 complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. And while we're at it, the measure of 2 supplementary, does that have 2 P's? Yeah, it does. Supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. So you got 2 angles that are complementary. They add up to 90 degrees, which makes a right angle. If 2 angles are supplementary, they add up to 180 degrees, which makes a straight angle. In other words, 180 degrees all the way around that, halfway around that circle. All right, so now let's go back here. 2 angles are complementary. The measure of the larger angle is 4 times the measure of the smaller angle. Write 2 equations that model the situation. Okay, the first sentence says 2 angles are complementary. What do we know? We know those 2 angles add up to 90 degrees because they're complementary. Then it says the measure of the larger angle is 4 times the measure of the smaller angle. Aha! Our 2 angles, one of them is a larger one and one of them is a smaller one. So we've got the larger angle and the smaller angle. So let's use variables to identify them. Let's call the measure of the larger angle X and the measure of the smaller angle Y. Okay? Any questions about that? All right. Now, 2 angles are complementary. That means that X plus Y equals 90 degrees. The larger angle is 4 times the measure of the smaller angle. The larger angle is 4 times the measure of the smaller angle. And there's your 2 equations. Any questions about that? All right. It doesn't ask us to, sorry, go ahead. Did you have something? Nope.
No, I said no.
Okay, all right. And it just asks us to come up with the 2 equations. So there they are, okay? Later we'll go on and we'll solve the system and everything. That's just the first example, all right? Next example, it says, complete the following table. All right, let's see here. Okay. It's one of those things where it's going to take longer to make the table than it is to answer the question, but such is life. All right, so this says principal times rate times time equals interest. So I equals PRT. That should be a familiar formula from the past. Okay. And then we've got Citibank and USA Savings. And then they put an X here and a Y there and a 5% here and 11% there and 1 year and 1 year. Okay. First, it says complete the table. Well, if P times R times T equals interest, then X times 5% times 1 year would be 0.05X. Okay. I converted the 5% into a decimal number. So 5% would be 0.05 times X times 1 would be 0.05X. Any questions there?
Nope.
All right. Likewise, the bottom one would be what? 0.11Y. Okay.
Yes.
Now, it goes on to say a total of $50,000 was deposited into accounts. Use that information to write an equation about the principal. So X plus Y equals 50,000. Again, it said a total of $50,000 was deposited in the two accounts. So X plus Y equals 50,000. All right. Then it says a total of $4,300 was earned by the two accounts. Use this information to write an equation about the interest. So this plus that would equal 4,300. Once again, there's your two equations with two unknowns. Any questions about that one?
Nope.
All righty. Here is another example. So again, it says complete the table. And let's see here. We have, it says with wind and against wind. It says rate times time equals distance. So we've got that distance equals rate times time formula. One of the things that annoys me, and it's just a personal thing, is that I'm used to using the formulas D equals RT. They have it backwards. I'm used to using I equals PRT. They put it backwards. It doesn't really matter. It just annoys me. Okay. So with the wind, is X plus Y. The time is 3. They don't really tell us what. We'll assume it's maybe 3 hours. Against the wind, X minus Y, and the time is 5 hours. So it says complete the table, which contains information about an airplane flying in windy conditions. Well, if distance equals rate times time, the first one would be 3 times the quantity X plus Y. The second one would be 5 times the quantity X minus Y. And that's basically it. Okay. Now we're going to take some problems where we're going to not only create the equations, but we're going to use one of our methods we've learned to solve the system. It says supplementary angles. Now, recall from a little while ago, 2 supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. It says 2 angles are supplementary. The measure of one angle is 20 degrees less than 19 times the measure of the other. Find the measure of each angle. Now, earlier there was a problem where it said larger angle and smaller angle. Here it just says one angle and another angle or the other. So let's call them, oops, one angle and the other angle. Okay. I'm going to call one angle X and the other angle Y. Again, you don't have to use X and Y, but and in WebAssign, it may tell you specifically what variables to use, and then you'll need to do that. But otherwise, you should be able to use any letters that you choose. Okay.
Okay.
So two angles are supplementary. So our first equation is going to be X plus Y equals 180. You know, if I just write it neat the first time, I wouldn't have to erase it and do it again. Oh, well, you think I'd learn. Then it says the measure of one angle, which is what, X, is equals 20 degrees less than, so we're subtracting 20 from 19 times the measure of the other angle. You see how that worked?
Yes.
Find the measure of each angle. All right, so we have our two equations with two unknowns. Now, there's nothing in the instructions that says you must solve it using graphing. You must solve it using substitution. You must solve it using elimination or the addition method. Looking at it, it seems to me like substitution would be the way to go because equation 2 is already solved for one of the variables. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. So I'm going to take this and put it right here. Okay.
Okay.
So that's going to give me 19y minus 20 plus y equals 180 degrees. Combining like terms, 20y minus 20 equals 180 degrees. Oh, and I should have said after I made the substitution. So step 3 there, I have my one equation with one unknown. Solving it, we'll add 20 to both sides of the equation. 20y equals 200. Divide both sides by 20, y equals 10. All right. Now, if y equals 10, I'm going to go back and plug that in to either one of the original equations. I'm going to plug it into equation number 1. So I get x plus 10 equals 180. Okay. Subtract 10 from both sides, x equals 170. Now, if x equals 170 and y equals 10, let's check it in the other equation. This is the equation number 2. 170 equals 19 times 10 minus 20. 170 equals 190 minus 20. 170 equals 170. So the solutions check. Now, what's different here from what we've done back in the previous 3 sections is we're not just looking for an ordered pair. We're looking for an actual quantity of something. What are we looking for? In this case, we're looking for one angle and the other angle. So one angle is 170 degrees. The other angle is 10 degrees. Okay. So in other words, the answer to that question would be the 170 degrees and the 10 degrees, not x is 170 and y is 10. And again, read the WebAssign questions carefully, see what they've got there and the units if they have them included. Sometimes they have a box and then it'll be like that with the degrees. Other times they'll want you to put the units in. Just see what they've got there. All right. Any questions about this problem?
Nope.
All righty. New example. This is a lovely problem today. It says causes of death. How fun is that? I know. According to the National Vital Statistics reports, in 2007, the number of Americans who died from motor vehicle accidents was about twice the number who died from falls. what I've always wondered about is what if you were in a motor vehicle accident and you went over the cliff? Would that count as a fall and an accident? I know that's morbid. I'm sorry. If the total number, if the total, it's Friday. If the total number of deaths from these two causes was approximately 66,000, how many Americans died from each cause in 2007? Okay. So what are our two causes? We've got vehicle accidents and falls. Okay. Tell you what, how about if we let V stand for vehicle accidents and F stand for falls? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And again, we could use X and Y. All right. Let's go back and look at the problem. According to the National Vital Statistics Report, in 2007, the number of Americans who died from motor vehicle accidents, so that's V, was, now was is the past tense of is, so it's an equal sign in the past.
Mhm.
So the number of Americans who died from motor vehicle accidents was about twice the number that died from falls. So V equals 2F. There's our first equation. If the total number of deaths from these two causes was approximately 66,000, what does it mean to find a total? It means you find a sum or you add them together. So if the total was approximately 66,000, how many Americans died from each cause in 2007? So I've got my two equations. Any question how I got either one of them?
Nope.
All right. Again, in this example, I think I would go with substitution because equation number one is already solved for one of the variables. So I'm going to take 2F and put it in place of V in the other original equation. That's going to give me 2F plus F equals 66,000. Combining like terms, 3F equals 66,000. Divide both sides by 3, F equals 22,000. All right, let's see. Let's plug that into one of the top equations. I'm going to plug it into the first one. It says V equals 2 times F. So V equals 44,000. I'll check it in the second equation that says V plus F equals 66,000. Is that true? Yes, it is. So vehicle accidents, 44,000, and it would be, let's see here, just from falls, I guess, or well, let's see, for this would be from motor vehicle accidents, and then F would be 22,000, which is from falls. Okay.
Okay.
All righty, let's take a look at another example. Ballroom dancing. A rectangular shaped dance floor has a perimeter of 200 feet. If the floor were 20 feet wider, its width would equal its length. Find the length and width of the dance floor. All right, so they want us to find the length and the width of the dance floor. How about we call the length L and the width W? It says a rectangular shaped dance floor has a perimeter of 200 feet. We're going to rely on a formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. And that formula is that the perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. But they tell us it has a perimeter of 200 feet. So our first equation is going to be 200 equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Any questions there?
Nope.
All right. Then it says, this one's a little trickier. If the floor were 20 feet wider, its width would equal its length. So the width and the length aren't equal. I'm going to do this. It says, if the floor were 20 feet wider, so if we increase the width by 20, it will equal the length. Do you see how I did that?
Yes.
All right, there's our second equation. Once again, I'm going to go with substitution. And as I recall, most of these problems tend to be easiest to solve using substitution. I think in Monday's lesson, we'll get to some problems. In fact, I'm going to go back for just a second. Can you see this situation where if you added those together, the y's would disappear?
Yes.
That's going to come up, I believe, on Monday. But anyway,
Okay.
that's just to whet your appetite, get you excited. You know, I can hardly wait. Is it working? No. All right. We're going to use substitution. I'm going to take all of that and put it in a place of L in the other equation. So that's going to give me 200 equals 2 times L, but we're replacing L with W plus 20, and then plus 2W. There's my one equation with one unknown. I'm going to solve that equation. So 2W plus 40 plus 2W. Combine like terms, 4W plus 40. Subtract 40 from both sides of the equation. 160 equals 4W. Divide both sides by 4 and we get 40 equals W. Okay, so I'm going to take that and plug it into one of the original equations. I'll plug it into equation number 1. 200 equals 2L plus 2 times 40. 200 equals 2L plus 80. Subtract 80 from both sides of the equation. 120 equals 2L. Divide both sides by 2, L equals 60. Let's check it in the other equation that says W plus 20 equals L. 60 equals 60. That checks. So the length is 60 and the width is 40. What have I left off of my answers that's important?
Feet.
Yeah, the units. And it
Yes.
said 200 feet. So this would be what, 60 feet and 40 feet. All righty. Well, that's all I've got for you for today. So over the weekend, this assignment, you've got some problems where you're going to just set up equations. You've got problems where there's going to be some vocabulary that you're going to get from the reading. And then you're going to solve some systems to get the answers. Anyhow, that's all I've got. So I'm going to stop the recording.